I'm delighted to cross to Rosarito, Mexico, where we're joined by our friend Thomas Markle, the father of the Duchess of Sussex.
That Meghan Markle has lied about her age. Is she actually?
You're prepared to testify for Samantha against Meghan? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Just imagine this. One tiny, forgotten line in an old teen magazine could be the key to flipping a duchess's entire life story on its head. Forget the online chatter and the vague whispers. We're talking about an actual printed line that could shatter the royal narrative we've all been sold. For years, the story of Meghan Markle has been a perfectly polished Hollywood fantasy that culminated with a wedding dress and a palace balcony. We know the date, we know the year, 1981, or so we thought. But now, it's not a rival or a hater challenging her timeline, it's the one man who knows her better than anyone, her father, Thomas Markle. And when a father goes on camera to say the math simply doesn't add up, it stops being just family drama and becomes a full-blown public scandal. What Thomas Markle is suggesting isn't a small thing, darlings. He isn't just tweaking a date or shaving off a few months, he's suggesting 6 entire years of her life are unaccounted for. 6 years that were crucial in shaping her image, her career, and the entire royal fairy tale that was built around her supposed age. And the smoking gun? It's not hidden away in a dusty royal archive, it's sitting right there in plain sight. We're talking about ink on paper, page 90 of 17 magazine, March 1997. That single line allegedly lists Meghan Markle as 21 years old. But based on her official 1981 birth year, she should have been a high schooler, just 15. Which is it, 15 or 21? That kind of massive gap doesn't just raise eyebrows, it blows a hole right through the foundation of her perfectly crafted public identity. When the man who watched her grow up points out that kind of crack in her story, it forces every one of us to ask the big, juicy questions. What's real? What was rewritten? And who, exactly, has been holding the pen to script her life all along? When Thomas Markle speaks, the world leans in, and it's not because he's a palace insider. It's because he's the original source, the man who saw his daughter long before the crowns, the cameras, and the careful curation of her life began. This isn't just about an age, it's about the deep, thrilling realization that one tiny forgotten detail can unravel the most expensive and exclusive celebrity story in the world.
To be honest with you, I love both my daughters. I'm not happy with what one of my daughters is doing. And I don't know what caused her to do this. We've had this conversation before. She's telling lies.
For years, he was painted as the tragic figure, the estranged father, the one left behind when his daughter crossed that velvet rope into royal life. But hold on to your hats, ladies, because now Thomas Markle is something else entirely, a whistleblower straight from the very inside of her past. It started quietly, with little murmurs from his home in Mexico, tiny contradictions that most people just brushed off as harmless slips from an old man. But lately, his tone has shifted dramatically. It's colder, sharper, and utterly deliberate. He's no longer hinting around the edges. He is now saying outright that something essential about Meghan's story doesn't add up, and he claims he has the receipts to prove it. When he was asked about that official 1981 birth year, he didn't even blink. The math doesn't work, he said, his voice calm but absolutely cutting. And that one line, that simple statement, has now lit the match under the entire royal narrative. This isn't just a father questioning a date on a certificate. This is him suggesting that the entire fairy tale, the timelines, the interviews, the biographies, might be a carefully managed illusion. And the heartbreak is what makes his words sting even more. Thomas Markle doesn't sound bitter or desperate for attention, he sounds utterly exhausted. The kind of weariness that comes from watching the truth bend until it almost breaks. Remember, this man worked behind the scenes in Hollywood his whole life, lighting, production, editing. He knows how stories are built and how reality can be shaped, frame by carefully selected frame. And when he looks at his daughter's life story, he sees cuts that simply don't line up. He's even agreed to testify in Samantha Markle's lawsuit against Meghan. That's not a mere tabloid squabble, that's family blood turning into public, courtroom evidence. His accusation hits differently now. It's not just forum gossip, it's a father's warning shot fired right at the royal gates, wrapped in heartbreak and sheer disbelief.
Samantha Markle has never told me a lie. Every single thing that she has said about either you or Meghan has checked out factually. And she is now suing Meghan.
It always starts small, doesn't it? One forgotten detail, one quiet inconsistency, and suddenly the fairy tale starts to crack. For Meghan Markle, that crack began not in a palace but in the glossy pages of a 1997 teen magazine. A simple article, a harmless feature about young women chasing fame. But there it was, one line that detonated across the internet decades later. Meghan Markle, 21 years old. Just a sentence, barely a breath. Yet to anyone who's read the official royal biography, that number isn't just wrong, it's explosive. If Meghan was born in 1981, she couldn't have been 21. She would have been 15. That's not a typo. That's an entire lifetime missing. And the most haunting part? It wasn't a journalist or a royal insider who found it. It was ordinary people, online sleuths scrolling through digital archives, zooming in on yellowed pages until the truth jumped out like a ghost. Within hours, that single line had gone viral. Screenshots, scans, debates. And suddenly, one question echoed louder than all the rest. How old is Meghan Markle really? At first, fans brushed it off, a misprint, surely. But the more they looked, the less sense it made. The details matched. The name, the hometown, the ambitions. Everything but the number. And that's when the whispers started changing tone. What if it wasn't a mistake? What if it was a preview of a story rewritten long before the royal titles ever existed? Because once you start comparing timelines, the picture doesn't stay neat for long. University records, interviews, early acting credits, they all start to blur, like a photograph touched up one too many times. It's as if the version of Meghan the world was shown had been quietly edited, frame by frame. And then, years later, came the birth certificate scandal, a royal record that should have been untouchable, altered without explanation. First it read Rachel Meghan Markle. Then, suddenly, it didn't. The new version replaced her name with Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. No statement, no reason, no accountability. Just gone. The palace called it a clerical update. But anyone who knows royal protocol knows, royal paperwork doesn't just change. Every comma, every title is historic. To alter it means something. It always means something. And that's where the unease begins. Because if royal records can quietly shift, what else might have been adjusted over the years? Meghan's defenders say it's nonsense. Her critics say it's a pattern. Tiny changes, subtle edits, each one polishing the story until it gleams too perfectly to be real. It's the same instinct that thrives in Hollywood. Rewrite, retouch, reinvent. There, it's survival. In the palace, it's sacrilege. But Meghan lived in both worlds. In Los Angeles, reinvention is a skill. You bend your story to fit the dream. In London, that same instinct can shatter a crown. Because where Hollywood forgives a rewrite, the monarchy calls it deceit. If that old 17 magazine line was real, it paints a picture few wanted to see. Not a wide-eyed ingenue trying to break into acting, but a woman in her late 20s, seasoned and strategic, fighting for her place in an industry that punishes women for aging. In that light, shaving a few years off isn't deception, it's armor. But that armor doesn't fit in Buckingham Palace. There, truth isn't flexible. It's lineage. It's history. It's supposed to be flawless. And suddenly, the woman who once rewrote her age for auditions is accused of rewriting her life for a title. Inside the palace, everything is choreographed. Every wave, every smile, every pause between words. Nothing moves without reason. That's why, when the cracks began showing, the whispers turned cold. Because for the monarchy, small details hold enormous weight. A birth year isn't just trivia, it's a thread in the royal fabric. Tug on it, and the whole tapestry quivers. And as Thomas Markle resurfaced with new claims, that tapestry started to fray again. His words didn't just target his daughter. They rattled the entire royal institution. Because if Meghan's timeline can't be trusted, what does that say about the palace that welcomed her? Online, the story exploded. Reddit threads, TikTok theories, digital detectives cross-referencing photos, graduation years, magazine clippings. It wasn't journalism anymore. It was obsession. Fans compared Meghan's classmates, her early cast lists, even the hairstyles of the era. It became a worldwide scavenger hunt, one clue leading to another, every unanswered question turning into proof. The palace stayed silent. Meghan stayed silent. And that silence became deafening. Because in today's world, silence doesn't protect, it provokes. Every day without a denial made the mystery grow. In the court of public opinion, silence sounds a lot like guilt. The internet doesn't wait for press statements. It writes its own story. And Meghan's silence became the blank page everyone filled in. Some saw restraint. Others saw evasion. But either way, the damage was done. Once, the royals controlled the narrative. Now, it belongs to millions of strangers with Wi-Fi and curiosity. And the more they searched, the deeper the questions cut, not just about Meghan's age, but about the monarchy's truth itself. Because if one duchess's birth year can blur under the palace's watch, what else might be flexible behind those gates? And that's where the real danger lies. Meghan's story has stopped being about numbers. It's about truth, who owns it, who shapes it, who dares to erase it. Her father calls it deception. Her defenders call it privacy. The palace calls it protocol. But somewhere in between, the line between fact and fiction dissolved. Maybe that's why this story refuses to die. Because it's not just about Meghan's past. It's about what her story represents, the power of image over authenticity, and the cost of living in two worlds that demand opposite versions of yourself. So perhaps the real secret isn't her age at all. Perhaps it's that Meghan Markle learned too well how to play the game, and now the game has turned on her. Every record changed, every silence held, every detail questioned. Each one chips away at the royal fairy tale until the marble starts to crumble. And once that happens, no title, no PR statement, and no royal silence can put it back together again. Because once belief cracks, it never looks the same. And that's the chilling truth. Maybe the real question isn't how old Meghan Markle is. Maybe it's how much of her story we've ever really known.